Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fun-filled nonsense retrospective. I'm your host, Rick, as always, and joining me equally as always is the other host, Devon. Hello.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking a bit about D&D. This is the first D&D podcast. We've got another one coming up as well. But before we get too far into that, let's start with our time-honored tradition of nonsense, asinine hypotheticals. And do you have one for me today?
Well, before we go into that, Rick, we need to offer the audience a tad bit of a warning.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah, sorry. So this is a problem that I have right now, in that I am roboting out. And since Devon's the one that's doing the YouTube side of the broadcast, if you want to listen to this more coherently, there is the audio version that's going up tomorrow.
Yes.
Or if you listen to the audio version, it's gone up today! Hello from the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, back into the good old nonsense, asinine hypotheticals with slightly more energy than before. Did you have one for me?
I forgot this was a segment. So I'm gonna have to pull one out my arse very quickly, and that is
Well, then I'll do the one that I pulled out my arse. It's you get dropped into D&D world. What class do you adopt?
None. I get murdered in 2 seconds by a common fucking thug.
Ah, so fighter.
Fighters are fine. D&D world is not because if you get dropped into D&D world, your stat block is a commoner of a challenge rating of quarter.
Yeah, you're a stack of 10s, and you've got proficiency in basically unarmed attack and like a hoe.
I don't think you even get a stat block of 10s. Most things are less than 10. 10 is meant to be like it's something that people get really confused because people think 0 is a bad modifier, but it's actually having a non-minus modifier means you're better than average.
Well, the flat 10s is literally just average.
Okay.
Flat 8s is below average, but not enough to be considered super deficient, which is why player characters tend to start at 8s. Well, nowadays they do anyway. Back in the day, it was just roll 3d6 and those are your stats, dickhead. But yeah, it's one of those. So you're going to be a commoner and you're going to get murdered.
I don't want to be a commoner, but like if you unless there's some magical element, in which case obviously you become a wizard or sorcerer because those things are bullshit.
Say you start in a city and you've got time to do your studying.
Well, you can't be a sorcerer then.
Well,
that rules out that class.
Yeah, there's a fair few classes that require you to be born with something. Sorcerer is the big one. But anybody can train to be fighter, rogue, or wizard.
But in theory, like taking out wizard, you could be a fighter or rogue in real life anyway.
Yeah, I like how rogue's main shtick is, you ever tried stabbing someone? Yeah. Well, you ever tried stabbing them a little bit harder? Good old sneak attack.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't really answer the question because it's just like, it's a difficult one to sort of answer. Because all classes kind of suck, but all classes are kind of awesome.
Yeah. Level 1 sucks. Level 20 is awesome. Everything in between is the story.
Well, level 20 is you are now a god. Go have fun.
Yeah. There were even some gods that were actually below level 20 as far as I'm aware.
I've been looking through the monster manual for unrelated reasons.
Yeah.
And there are some gods that are like, I think the lowest level god I've found is challenge rating 17.
Yeah. As for a party of level 17s, there's a challenge rating 3 guy that's got 3 attacks. So that's basically the same as like a level 11 fighter.
Fair enough.
But the idea is, like, he's on his own. He's doing his best against you. His only thing that he does is 3 attacks. And the entire party is just meant to just go biff until he's dead.
Okay.
Yeah. But so yeah, basically challenge ratings are bullshit.
I mean, everything in the game's bullshit because it's all just numbers.
Well, yeah, and everything's made up. Everything's made up and the numbers don't matter, except the numbers are the only thing that are codified.
One of my favourite memes is Gaston looking at the book like an idiot. From the scene from Beauty and the Beast where Belle's like reading and he doesn't get it because he's an idiot and that's his whole shtick. But
Yeah, yeah,
but it's just like D&D's meant to be so cool and awesome. It's just maths.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like if you boil it down to its core, that's all D&D is maths. Maths with magical clicky clack dice. Sorry, clicky clack rocks even.
It's maths and playground.
Yeah. It's playing make believe. However, you can't just go, I deflect that because
I win. I choose to win, therefore I do, and I shout louder, therefore it happens.
I hate kids.
I also hated being a kid because of other kids.
Well, I've told you. I've definitely told you because I think Chris has also told you. But did we ever tell you about the time we played Final Fantasy on the playground?
Yeah, you did.
Did I say that story on the podcast?
Yeah, pretty much you did. Pretty much sure you did. However, for those who may not have seen that episode,
there's not much to tell really. Like FF10 came out. That's how long ago this was. We're talking like 2002, I think. Yeah, I didn't have a PlayStation 2, so I couldn't play Final Fantasy X, let alone obtain it. And when we played Final Fantasy on the playground, I believe his name was Josh. He was like, okay, you can be an FF9 character, but because you're from FF9, that means you're weaker than FF10.
Yeah.
And by dumb kid logic, it was like, that kind of makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because it's older, it has to be worse.
Something. Dumb. Deeper Food proves that it's dumb.
Yeah. But yeah, if we're skipping the other hypothetical, then we can get straight into it if you like.
Why are we skipping the other hypothetical?
Well, because you've not thought of one.
I said I was now, then cool. I was gonna pull one out my arse, and you went, "Oh, you've not got one. I'm gonna do mine first."
Yeah. Well, it was also kind of chance for you to pull one out of your arse a bit faster, but it's up to you. If you've already pulled one out of your arse, then cool.
Yes. You obtain the abilities of magic.
Yay!
You are... Oh, fucking hell, Chris is in the chat. I generally didn't expect you to turn up because I thought you were working. Year 2000.
Hello! I'm going to have to rely on Dev to give me the chat because I've not got the stream open.
He says, yeah, 2000. Yes, it was Josh, and I knew you were going to tell that story again. Well, it's a good story.
It is a good story.
I tell all my stories multiple times. But yeah, fuck, where was I? Yes, you gain the abilities of magic, but you're limited to one element. What element do you pick?
Fire's normally the go-to, but there's a lot of things resistant to fire, like anything that lives in a volcano, which is a normal thing that happens in the world.
Yeah.
Well, in a D&D world, is resistant to fire. Are we talking about in the real world or in the D&D world?
Oh, talking in the world. Chris is on lunch break. That's why he's here. In the real world, not in D&D world. In D&D world, you'll instantly get fucked by any wizard who is not limited to one element.
In real world, light's a bit of a cop-out. Because nearly anything.
Light's a good one, though. It's such a universally good thing.
Yeah. I might have to go with lightning, because even though things can protect against it, that's also kind of good. Because if you struggle to control it, you're just going to short out every single electrical thing you own. However, if you are controlling it well, then you can be really useful.
I'm just thinking of Amphibia, where, what's the main character from Amphibia? Anne?
Yeah, Anne. Anne Boon-Chui.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of that one episode which is just her on the quest for lightning so she could charge her phone.
Yeah. Turns out to be really useful because it's the only thing that keeps us sane.
True enough. Just as an aside, Chris says he's joined us because he wanted to see how quickly we tear apart yet another game he loves.
Oh, we're not tearing it apart. We're doing history.
Little bit. Mostly history.
Yeah.
Rick, I didn't actually tell you, and I probably should have done. In the title for the video, this isn't just limited to D&D. It also says other tabletops. Mostly because I know you've dabbled in Dragon Age and other things.
Yeah. So I've done the Dragon Age tabletop. We do talk about another couple of tabletops in my script, which turned out to be longer than I thought. And the first one we have to talk about is called Chainmail. and it was written by.
Previous experience.
Okay, the previous experience we have with D&D. What is your previous experience?
Officially D&D would be your campaign.
Okay, so
Uh,
starting with fifth.
pretty much. Unofficially, and I'm pretty sure I told you this on the lead up to your first campaign, was back in the day there was a magical website called SimRTK.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Romance of the Three Kingdoms simulator online. And it was basically a tabletop RPG, except it was played via forums. Back when websites would just be one forum, as opposed to just going to Reddit nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. Here's the thing. I do appreciate the old school mentality of that. You could search for a forum and you could have like 15 different ones that did the same thing. Pretty much the same as Reddit does now.
Yeah.
But they'd be formatted differently and have like a very visible admin. Like for Sonic the Hedgehog, there were like millions of them because it's Sonic the Hedgehog, but I picked one that was called Sonic Eternity, and I made some lifelong friends there. That's great.
Didn't you meet Chris via that?
In a roundabout way, yes, because I met Martin there, and through that I met Simon, and through Simon I met Chris. So yeah, I did.
Yeah, fair enough. I vaguely recall you two mentioning that you met via forums. I wasn't sure if it was a Sonic one or not.
Kinda. Yeah, so basically that one was the beginning of the chain of deals that led to me meeting Chris, and therefore you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sonic Eternity. Very cool.
Thank you, Sonic, and your creepy furry fan art.
And little tangent. We actually started referencing this one really, I'm going to say unpopular, but not like groundbreakingly meme-tastic animation in our posts. And the guy that made it started, well, he found it, and he said, I can't believe that stupid fucking video I made 2 years ago is now being referenced on a fucking Sonic the Hedgehog website.
Was it Sonic? It was Sonic related, right?
No.
No. Okay, I can understand the confusion.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and my previous experience, I dotted it around the video, so I first started around the time 3rd edition was new, by getting a game that proudly stated, this is the 3rd edition game, the first ever game to do 3rd edition, and that was the last time BioWare had the license.
Oh, so it was a video game.
Yeah, it was a video game. My first D&D was a video game. And from that, within the space of a few weeks, months, or within the same school year, Chris V got the red box, which was D&D 1st edition. We played that a little bit, not very well, but, you know, it was better than sitting around playing Soul Calibur all the time.
Speaking of Soul Calibur, Chris says that's how you officially met, was via Soul Calibur.
Yes, it was. Absolutely it was.
Yeah.
Soul Calibur 4, random lobby.
I don't want Chris to think I was ignoring him. It was just I didn't want to just randomly interrupt with, by the way, Chris says so-and-so.
So, we played a little bit of 1st edition alongside the time that we used to play Mordheim.
Oh, Mordheim. Oh, my days. Oh, fucking flashbacks of fun.
Yeah. So Mordheim was basically like the midpoint between D&D and proper tabletop. In that you had you guys and you leveled them up.
Mordheim was the game where it was in the specialist game section of Games Workshop back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was something I looked on with envy. I wanted to play this game, but alas, I knew my painting and modelling skills were not up to snuff and I would be mocked.
On the plus side, you could actually just use the regular models from other things.
True.
You know, yeah. Especially the Skaven. Like, you just use normal Skaven. In fact, you were encouraged to use normal Skaven, because the two ways to play Skaven in Mordheim were you either had Eshin Triad and just went around murdering everything with 3 superpowered OP rats, or you had Infinity Shit Rats. And just didn't care about what they did to live or die, and just bought more with whatever you took home.
That's one of the interesting things that crops up a lot on D&D memes, is a perfectly normal civil discussion about D&D. Quickly, look how quickly it devolves into the party arguing if they could beat 1 million ants.
Yeah. Yeah, and it always comes down to, yeah, but it's an ant. I can fuck up an ant, and someone just going, but a million,
In
and it's just that over and over again.
like the annoying thing is anything with stats in D&D, if there's a million of them, chances are you can't beat them all.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a million lions versus the sun.
A million lions versus okay, that's a bit different because the sun does ambient damage without having to do anything.
Yeah, the sun toasts the lions, literally. There is a number of lions that would destroy the sun, but it would require the massive.
That's a fucking sentence.
It requires the lions to be there to be more lions than the mass of the galaxy, not the galaxy, than the mass of the solar system, to create a black hole that would eat the sun.
Didn't Angron try and do something like that?
Maybe just just throw lions at the sun.
No, I mean tried to eat the sun. Maybe not Agron, but not Agron. That's a Pokemon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, yeah, we're just retconning it to Agron now. Yeah, Agron tried to eat the sun. But yeah, that was the first time I got into it, and I kept dipping in and out. We did play a bit of Third Ed when it was new, when I first went to uni,
Mm-hmm.
and I had one second edition game that was. I bought it because it was cheap. It was actually my friend that got the Third Ed game, and we just both played it to hell. So the one that I wanted for myself was the one that was cheap, and that was a second edition game. And most things were very similar, but there was enough different to go, oh yeah, this isn't the thing that I played before.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Chris has only just now got onto our ant discussion. And it depends on the skill of the DM and this and that, and it's like it's on D&D memes. It's not meant to be taken seriously, dude.
Well, if you want to combat a million ants, just bring in a million decks.
I mean, like a million ants could actually probably be easily beaten with, I don't know, a Dragonborn's breath weapon.
Yeah, yeah. Or
It's a stupid conversation. I really don't want to get further into it.
I was going to say formic acid, but that's the acid that ants actually use. It's so boric acid that destroys insect carapaces.
In D&D, I'm pretty sure you could just walk on them.
Yeah.
Sneeze in their general direction.
There's a warlock build, which is you get a little bag of holding, fill it with beetles, and you hex one of your beetles, so you've always got your hex up, and just kill the beetle so you can move it.
Do you want to talk about how our current bag of holding in our current game is being occupied by rocks?
Yeah. It's a bag of holding. It's the bag of holding solely rocks.
There's a lot of rocks in there.
There is a lot of rocks in there. Yeah, Nibs saw Rock Gnome and thought, oh, cool, rock-type Pokemon.
Yeah. Rick's teaching her awful tricks that she might end up employing.
Oh yeah, totally. There's a spell that I want her to take now that I've learned about it, and I'll tell people about it in the campaign, so everyone's got the same amount of warning.
Maybe, yeah. And my like Nibs posted a GIF of, I can't remember it exactly, but it's like, yes, excellent. I think it might have even been Mr. Burns. Followed immediately by mine of just Fuzzy Bear going, fuck.
Yep.
Oh no.
Oh, was that in response to me posting the Thomas the Tank Engine flamethrower thing?
No. That was literally after the gravity thing bullshit that you posted.
Oh yeah, that might be it. Yeah, the one where you just go, I want that thing. I'm going to put it over there in lava.
Yeah. It's gonna be a bad day. But yeah, we've waffled a little bit. Do you want to try and get back on track on your script?
Yeah. So before we start, we have to talk about Chainmail. It was written by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. They are the two grandfathers of D&D. Gygax is the one that gets the more attention. But,
Gygax is the one I've heard of.
Yeah.
He was on Futurama.
Yeah, he is. It was basically Warhammer before Warhammer. Like it was like early 70s. It was a model game where instead of normal soldier army men from the modern day, you had medieval guys. But they had the same stats more or less, and artillery was replaced by mages, which had the same stats more or less. and medics were replaced by clerics, which you get the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a prototype for D&D, but like army on an army scale.
Yes. Okay.
And they decided, oh, let's zoom in on this and tell the story of one of these guys.
And thus
All
Conan the
right.
Barbarian was born.
Wasn't Conan from like the 20s?
Conan's old as fuck.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Fun little fact about the D20. It was Dave Arneson finding them on sale on a family holiday in Europe, like back when he was a teenager. Years later, he introduced it as an alternative to 3D6, which,
Yes, yeah, close enough.
Like everyone had D6s, but
Yeah, raid the Monopoly board.
Only a few people had this random, like stupid hypercube.
I do like how it's just European nonsense is how we got it.
Yeah, totally. They had two variants of the original rules. One of them was with 3D6, and one of them had the D20 rules. And it was basically the same thing, but it was geared around the 3D6 having an obvious average of the middle, whereas a D20 can be completely swingy.
Mm-hmm. Man, I've got to be honest with you, despite knowing we had a D&D episode coming up today, I was not expecting the words "interesting D20 fact" to arrive in conversation.
Yeah, they started bundling D20s with the reprints after that, and only printing the D20 rules because they gave you the dice with it.
Yeah, makes sense.
But when they tried to order them wholesale, they couldn't not get the other polyhedrons.
Oh, so is that why every fucking D&D set nowadays comes with one of each?
Yeah. So
that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, it comes with one of each now, because of D&D. But back in the day, it was just educational shapes. So yeah, you got your D4, your D8, your D10, and your D12 just added to the pile. And now you got two D10s because they make hundreds.
Oh, they do and all, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, you got your 100 dice and you got your 10s dice and your units dice.
And then you got fucking Warhammer that still sticks to nothing but D6s, which means whenever you got a fucking table in a campaign or fun dumb little game, it's always just like, it's the weirdest. It's like 11 to 16. What they've got all the numbers correlating to a reward, and then it jumps to 21 to 26. It's fucking silly because they refuse to budge.
Yep. Because everyone has a million D6s, and like Games Workshop sell packs of millions of D6s.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? Like if they did well, and then again, I suppose it is nowadays it's a distinguishing factor that they only use D6. So in theory, any old fucker can play. You don't need to buy specific dice, but we got to buy the shiny click clack rocks, Rick.
Like if you're playing it at home with your mate, you can print out a picture of something, origami it into something that stands up, and just roll D6s and like have your Paperman army against your mate's Paperman army. Like you can just do that at home if you like. Things are gonna fall down. Like as soon as someone opens the door, they're all gonna die. Oh, did you ever have that when a model fell over? Someone got, oh, it's dead.
Okay, do you want to hear some fucked up stories from when I started Warhammer back in the day?
Go ahead.
I have two brothers. One of them I still count as a brother. The other one is dead to me. The one that's dead to me one day came in while I was fucking around with people, and I understand not getting how Warhammer works. That's a perfectly normal thing to have, but when people put their time and effort into assembling and painting models, you should not pick one up and then go, oh, do I just chuck it at the other ones?
Oh boy.
Yeah. The other story is I'll keep to myself because it's actually kind of gross and involves my other brother and I don't want to embarrass him.
Did it go up his arse?
No. It was in a public place.
Okay, it's not that gross then.
Live action D&D games. Chris says he wants more live action D&D games. But I don't know what he means, but locations are a problem.
Oh, you mean LARPing?
Maybe. Do you mean LARPing, Chris? But I feel like Chris knows the term LARP.
Yeah, because we've also all seen Hawkeye.
I knew about it before then.
Yeah, ditto. Our role-playing game society at uni was predominantly LARP. and because I didn't really care for LARP, we kind of made our own splinter faction.
You forced a coup.
No. We just never joined because it was all LARP. We knew it was all LARP. So the LURPS, Lancaster University Role Playing Society, had.
Oh, okay, that makes way more. Chris literally just meant D&D in person.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I get you, man. I feel like D&D in person is a much more entertaining
It's a much more.
experience.
It's definitely a much more social thing because you can get pizza in the middle. It's great.
Mm. He also acknowledges that LARPing doesn't sound awful. Wait, I'll
Okay,
read.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That also sounds fun in regards to LARPing. So yeah.
Yeah. So LARPing is one of these things where we weren't bothered about it when we were like 18, 19.
Mm-hmm.
I can see a lot more joy in it now that I'm a bit older and now that I could probably afford the actual good LARP gear. However,
I've seen people LARPing on the internet, and it makes my whole body cringe when you
yeah,
see people see people go fireball counterspell, fireball counterspell. It makes me just go, oh no, I couldn't. No.
Oh, the other one was if you held your finger up, that meant you were invisible.
Okay. That's fine. Like, it's just the shouting spell names and the potential of being seen. And I get it. You're meant to be a little bit silly, but it just makes me go, oh, I can't, man. I can't. No.
Yeah.
Apparently, Calypso LARPs and says
Okay.
it's awesome. The only reason
Sweet.
I'm saying these comments out loud, guys, is because of the internet issues. Rick's not currently actually in the chat, so he can't see it for himself.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got through that. We got through the D12 fiasco. This was all pre Wizards of the Coast, so it was still under TSR, which was the publishing firm that they had and just worked with. People refer to that as first edition. It's closer to a 0th edition.
So like pre alpha.
Yeah, more or less. But it was really well loved. And this is also the edition that had races that were classes. So if you weren't a human, you had a class built into your race. So you were if you were an elf, your class was elf. If you were a dwarf, your class was dwarf. Yeah, you had to be a human to be a magic user, cleric, or rogue. Well, rogue was even later. Rogue was introduced in an update. So cleric, magic user, or fighting man. He was called Fighting Man. And towards the end, that's when they introduced a couple more classes. They introduced Rogue, which there was these massive debates about whether Rogue ruined the game because
the answer is yes.
It introduced the idea that if the Rogue was good at this and had rules for this, then it meant that other people shouldn't be able to do the thing without investing in Rogue.
That's bollocks.
So, because the Rogue was really good at climbing, it meant that your fighter was no longer a good climbing guy, which is silly.
Yeah, it is. Look, this buff muscle man cannot lift his bulk up a couple of feet.
Yeah, and I think the main thing that they used to post that argument that it was shit is Conan. He didn't refer to himself as a barbarian; he referred to himself as a thief. Except he was colossally muscular and played by Arnie.
Later, Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
Who is also a big buff muscle man. Yes, I'm here for that shit.
I've still not seen that since last week, but
I don't know if it's on any streaming services, but honestly, it's a pretty good film. And unlike Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jason Momoa did not almost die filming it.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, have you read the amount of fuck-ups that occurred on the filming of that fucking film? That film was cursed.
I haven't, no. No, I haven't.
Anything from Arnie constantly falling downstairs to getting viciously mauled by dogs because they hadn't been trained properly.
Oh, boy.
Some fucked up shit, man. I think the only person who had a worse time on set was Bob Hoskins in the Mario movie. That's a fucking high bar of fucked up shit to have happened to you, is that the good old Bob Hoskins?
Yeah. The original books they had for 0th edition were the Greyhawk setting, which was Gygax's own thing on the planet of Earth.
Didn't
But
you
spelt
make
with an
us
O.
Didn't you make us play that or the updated version of it for our initial intro?
Oh no, my starting town was Greycliff.
Okay, but I could have sworn you said it was based on something by Gygax.
Um,
It's been a
Not
minute, man.
really.
I don't know.
There was one that I did that was based on something. I did a Tomb of Horrors style thing, which Gygax wrote because people complained that his content was too easy. So he made the Tomb of Horrors, which kills you.
Points angrily at the beholder.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, fucking liches, man. He introduced liches because people kept killing monsters, so he introduced the lich to be the most obtuse thing where the DM just goes, actually, at every point and say it like, oh, actually, if you don't find the thing somewhere in the world where he's not going to tell you where it is, then he just reforms like Rasputin.
Or, Voldemort, but with less steps.
Yeah. Yeah, he's only got one. Oh, Voldemort's got 7.
Yeah.
Eight if you count Harry, which you should, because that's the plot. That's a plot point.
I don't care about Harry Potter.
Yep.
The character or the series, I'm sorry, but I'm not that sorry.
Yeah, that was on O Earth. Well, it's Earth with an O, so O Earth.
It's like how any alien would call Earth Earth.
Earth. Yeah. New classes including the Almighty Boy Scout, the Paladin, which was a subclass of the Fighting Man.
Yes.
And okay, it says in my script they had to keep do good to keep be good.
Oh yeah. Originally, I'm aware up until a certain edition, paladins had to be lawfully good and never change.
Yeah. In fact, that was up till 4th, I believe. So even in 3.5, they had to be lawful good, and that's all they could be. People moaned about it when they changed it in 4th, but then this settled down by the time 5th rolled around, and you could have a chaos. You could have a chaos paladin. You could have a chaos monk. You could have a lawful barbarian. Yeah.
I think there should be. I mean, obviously they agree because they ended up making the change, but I do think there should be a lot of wriggle room on class and alignment because that way you can have some fun shit. And going on a bit of a tangent on what we said a little bit earlier, because Chris is a bit behind on the stream, he said he thinks Rakshasa are worse. I assume I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're a bit. You can kill them on their initial encounter unless you're an Eberron. Then they just reform somewhere else because they essentially count. They count the world that they're on as being both their prime plane and not. So they just cheat. Most fiends go back to the plane that they're born on when they're killed, if they're not on the plane that they're from.
Fiend implies like devil, which makes sense that they'd be bullshit with their wording, because that's always the gimmick with demons of any kind or fiends, whatever you want to call them, where they're never going to be truthful, as it were. There's always going to be another play, another deception.
Yeah. Like it's the asshole genie thing where they'll give you your wish, but they'll twist it in some way.
Okay, do you know what my favorite actual twist on that was? It was something I saw in D&D memes, so it might not have actually occurred in someone's game, but it was I found a djinn, and our entire party was very greedy, and my character cleaned off a lamp, and a djinn came out, and he said, "If you thank you for cleaning my lamp. In exchange, I'll give you a single wish." And he was like, I'd like loot. I want loot. And the djinn goes, "That's a really broad request. Can you be more specific? How much loot do you want?" And he counts his party members, and there's 5 of them, and he's feeling generous. He's like, "I want 5 loots." And the djinn went, "Done," clicked his fingers, went back into his lamp, and the person who made the wish turned into 5 loots, as in the instrument.
Yeah.
Chris is just explaining how to kill a Raksha.
Yeah, they're immune to spells 6th level or lower unless they choose to become vulnerable to it, like if you're trying to heal one. And they are immune to non-magical weapons, and they are vulnerable to magical piercing weapons wielded by a character of good alignment.
Okay, but all of that, fair enough. Chris is just saying you kill them, they come back, they consider you target their revenge, they will hunt you down infinitely because they have a hatred towards you that cannot be quenched. The only way to permanently kill them is you have to travel to the Nine Hells and kill them there to stop them from respawning.
Yeah, yeah,
That sounds like fun.
yeah.
That sounds
They're
like a
also
way to really fucking make your players hate you.
They're also perfect shapeshifters. So, yeah. There's more than one setting where like the entire council is just a flock of wolves, where every single person in there is a shapeshifter, and none of them are aware of the other ones.
So it's
like,
Among Us.
yeah. So there's like a Rakshasa, there's a Yuan-Ti, there's like every flavor of dragon, and none of them know that the other are actually not the human being that they're trying to pretend to be. So they're all trying to keep kayfabe, and it's actually pretty funny.
I love how kayfabe is now a common lexicon word.
Well, yeah, like absolutely. Like it's a real easy thing to like get your head around. Like these people are playing the characters. They still are the people playing it, but the character kind of comes first, unless something really fucked up happens and like people actually need to get behind or against them for whatever reason. Like someone's mum needs a heart transplant. Well, you're gonna get behind the human being, not the character at that point, really, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm assuming this is still talking about Rakshas and their doppelganger abilities, because
Yeah, doppelganger. Yeah,
Chris says except for their hand is reversed with the thumb on the opposite side. Apparently,
yeah. The hands are backwards.
that's a
The
really good subtle fucking thing to have as a way of actually telling, especially if you've got one fucking hunting you down an entire game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the incredibly skilled ones know that that's a thing, so they will do their utmost to either hide it or make the little thumb invisible and make a false other thumb.
Okay.
Like they'll do their best to sell the deception.
No, I get that. I get that. I really don't know anything about this enemy because I've never used them in any of my campaigns, and I probably never will because they sound horrible.
Yeah, they were more or less one of the overarching big bads in the Eberron setting, where there's like 20 odd lords of like super demon lords, and every Rakshasa is their herald.
Great fun. Fuck that
So
setting.
all the Rakshasa are named, and if you do anything, you will be empowering one of the demon lords. And the Rakshasa that's against them thinks you're awesome because you're doing something that weakens their rival, and therefore, well, you're doing something that strengthens their rival and weakens others. Yeah, it's basically a massive house of cards.
There's a Constantine plot that is exactly this.
Yeah.
Except instead of being Eberron, it's New York City. Except it's not New York
Yeah.
City because it's DC, so it's like fucking made up a stan.
Yeah, made up a stand.
I forget what city they're in. It's not Gotham and it's not Metropolis, so I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Or what's the other one? Is it Darkersburg or something that
Dude,
fucking...
if it's not Gotham or Metropolis, I actually don't care.
Well, it's the one that Nightwing goes to because he's sick of Batman being Batman.
You think I read Nightwing comics? Get fucked.
I've not read a single DC comic, so...
Alright, granted, it's more animations than comics, but, you know, I read Batman from DC and that's about it. Sometimes Justice League, and even then, it's just like generic city in America.
Yeah. I am threatening to sneeze, but we'll get to that when we come to it.
You can just sneeze, like... Just try not to blow out the mic. I know that's... Just lean backwards, do a Tazon Day. Leans back from mic.
Yeah. It's I know that it's coming, but it's not right now. So yeah, well, most of the bullshit of D&D 0 was consolidated into AD&D.
Just a quick question: we're not going through every single version, are we?
A little bit, because there's a bit of history in each.
Oh, for fuck's sake, man! I thought we were just going to talk about the fun shit and then get on with our lives. No, we're doing a history lesson because it's Rick.
Well, I can skip through it a bit. Like AD&D was the real first edition, so that's where we got like third, fourth, and fifth from. That's where we start counting. That's where they employed Lorraine Williams, who is basically the Satan of D&D, because she didn't
Okay,
force
elaborate. Come on.
she didn't force Gygax out, but when one of the board members was annoyed, they sold their stock to her. Then she had the majority, and Gygax was like, "Fuck it, she's gonna win any argument anyway, so I might as well sell my stock to her as well." So that's when he exited the company.
And that's when he made his glorious return by making a rival game that was better.
And that was someone else. That was just one of the miniature companies that were contracted to make content.
Okay.
Gygax was like eternally sued until pretty much the end of his days anytime he tried to make a role-playing game, because it was seen as breaching the non-competition clause.
That's those usually have a time limit.
They usually do.
He's a fucking
yeah.
fool if he signed one that was indefinite.
It wasn't indefinite. The idea was he was meant to make royalties, and the first thing she did was create second edition because the royalties were for first edition.
Yeah, that's scummy.
Yep.
But that's also capitalism, unfortunately.
Second edition was the one that the game that I bought for cheap was based on.
Mm-hmm.
She forbade playtesting because
That's a bad idea.
She saw it as playing games on work company time.
Yes, but that's what playtesting means.
Yeah, exactly.
You're testing how the game plays.
Yeah, so that sealed the fate on the quality of that game.
Could you imagine if video game companies didn't do that?
I know, right?
Fucking insane. I know some of them do really lax playtesting, but they still playtest the bare minimum.
Yep. She did an executive order to have a space game pub on the same kind of rules. So her employees went, okay, we don't really want to do this, so we're going to maliciously comply and make it the most ridiculous, stupid thing in the world. And they did that so well that it actually got into so bad it's good territory with things like anthropomorphic hippopotamuses. And your ship is actually more of a boat ship that goes through space, and it's the sea of stars, and like you might fall into like a shitty wormhole and have to do things.
It's more effort than I thought they would bother. I genuinely think that if someone asked you to do something you didn't want to do to that grounds, you would literally just go through your old shit and go, okay, boom, it's space now.
Yeah. They put a lot more effort than they needed to into it, and it kind of shows because it's still got a cult following even now. So yeah, that was. Sorry, I lost my place. Yeah, the first edition had Satanic Panic.
I mean, every single edition has always had an element of this, but I imagine the first edition was the worst of it.
Yeah. It was falsely linked to a boy's disappearance, correctly linked to someone's suicide, and
bit more fucking details than none, bud.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much it.
I mean, how was it linked to someone's suicide? Did they just not like the game, or did they think the game compelled them to? What's the story there?
I could pull up the name if you give me time, but
is that all? Is that all you would know? Is just name? They don't actually say why it was linked to.
There's a Wikipedia article on it, but I didn't click it because it was depressing.
I'm just curious as I'm. All right, it's fucked up. Someone's killed themselves. Don't get me wrong, but I'm curious how D&D can be considered a link to that.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, the part of the Satanic Panic was also the Chick tracts, which were based on the well, I think one of the thing where they were going to sacrifice someone in one of these stupid.
Oh yeah, like the fucking most recent one was the Slender Man shit, where literally little girls went and tried to sacrifice one of their little girlfriends to Slender Man.
Because they didn't believe in Jesus hard enough.
Because kids are fucking idiots.
And the stupid thing is, both Williams and Gygax were like devout Christians, but on opposite ends of the scale.
Well, at the end of the game has demons in it. Yes, of course it does. You're killing
But
them.
yeah, you're very much on the side of opposing the demons.
One of the
Like,
classes is a cleric who is devout to God.
yeah, yeah, and like, cleric and paladin both. Like they're both devout good guys.
It's like the
Or meant
fucking.
to
It's
be.
like the. I fucking love the guy who. I don't know if he made Doom, but he was definitely like on the team that made Doom and like
Yeah,
high up on the chain. Who's like a devout Mormon,
yeah.
and he's just like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Yes, there's demons in the game, but you're blowing them up with shotguns.
Yes, we have demons, but you kill them. Like, yes, you go to hell, but you go there to kill demons.
You get to punch Satan in the face.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, she also there. What actually? Little intersection of that. There was a surprisingly good crossover book called Diablo the Awakening, which is good enough to run reskinned as just a demon book, but it is basically the Diablo D&D.
Yeah, the name kind of hinted me at that.
Yeah.
Chris just says, creepypasta, and I assume that was related to our Slenderman talk.
Yeah, it's worse than that. It's someone actually went out of the way to draw a full comic that was based around, if you don't believe in Jesus hard enough, then your friends will sacrifice you.
Oh, is that I just thought you were doing an offhand remark. I didn't think it was an actual fucking copy-paste thing.
No, these are real things. These are real comics. There's one for D&D. There's basically one for everything. If there's something that a really, really, really insane quote-unquote Christian will be against, there will be a comic against it by someone, either the real Chick Tracts or Chick whatever his name is, and or someone pretending to be him. It's gotten to the point where these kind of have to be parody, because
Or,
the alternative is a world that I don't want to live in, which is, something that's cropped up a lot since like 2008.
Last Wednesday.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Chris says, to be fair, a satanic panic was still a huge problem. Many fantasy authors in general, blah blah, demons, blah blah, Final Fantasy, where you often kill God, would be problematic. And it's like, yeah, I get you, but when I say satanic panic still exists, I don't mean like full, like 70s, 80s, pre-internet. It was actually quite a problem. But
Yeah. Like, they're still having book burnings, but anybody can take a picture of that, post it on Facebook, and say, look at how stupid these people are.
Yeah, and then Chris makes a very valid point, which is kind of bordering on the own I was trying to make, but less eloquently. Me saying I was less eloquent. He knows there are still some devout Christians that still have issues with it, etc., but there's just so much content these days that they can't actually afford to have the time to protest everything.
Yeah, you can't protest Monster Manual 1, Monster Manual 2, the Book of Vile Darkness, the Book of Virtuous Deeds, which, why would you want to protest against the Book of Virtuous Deeds?
God damn it, they said we should forgive the hookers! That's why you burn it.
Yeah. She also made a Dragon Dice game. It was
That sounds like Dungeon Dice Monsters.
Exactly. So it flopped really hard.
No shit. It sounds terrible.
And it was in response to Magic the Gathering. And it was potentially referenced in Yu-Gi-Oh! By Dungeon Dice Monsters, which showed up for like one episode.
But that makes perfect sense, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just Magic the Gathering.
Yeah. And originally the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show was meant to be like all games. That's why Yu-Gi was the king of games.
The only oh dude, I love it. Someone actually outlined it for me. I can't remember where it was. I think it was one of the many meme subreddits I go to. I love the fucking transition of straight up horror anime transitioning to bullshit shonen, but involving Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, because I think in the original manga, like,
he sent people to hell.
Yeah, Kaiba invites everyone to like a murder theme park.
Okay, I'm not sure. I've read a degree. No, not read. Watched. I think maybe all of it, but maybe not, because I think there's only 4 episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zero. which
Sure.
is pre-Yu-Gi-Oh, which is basically the original concept. And Yami Yugi would challenge people to games, and when he wins, he sends them to the Shadow Realm.
Yeah.
He event-
Mind crush.
yeah, exactly. Like they make it a joke in a bridge, but that's literally all he fucking did. And eventually, Kaiba crossed his path, and they played Yu-Gi-Oh, and Yami was actually pretty good at it because he's the king of games. He can do whatever, and also blah blah. Egyptian ancients used to play it, and Kaiba didn't win. It was a draw, which meant Kaiba could run away.
Yeah.
But that also means that
villain.
that also means Yugi didn't win. So
yeah. The only time that Yugi doesn't win is when it's a draw.
there was that one time in Duelist Kingdom where Seto Kaiba threatened to kill himself if he lost. So yeah. Yeah, no, I get you. I'm not talking about the literal card game, Chris. It's like literally the manga author wanted the card game they play to be Magic the Gathering, but they couldn't afford the rights or something like that, so they made up their own bullshit game.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because sorry, Chris is just saying that Yu-Gi-Oh is more bulky and complicated at this point. MTG is fairly straightforward. Sorry, again, I'm reading the comments out loud because Rick can't just look at the chat. Because
sure. And also, isn't most of Yu-Gi-Oh pretty much evergreen? Like, you can have a Yu-Gi-Oh card from the very first days, and okay, it might have been power crept to hell, but most of them are still legal, apart from like Pot of Greed.
Can't use Pot of Greed. Depends on the year for Monster Reborn. There is a banned card list. Chris is saying Yugi lost a few times, and I'm sure he did. I only watched up to the end of Duelist City, and I can't be asked to remember. But you might be correct on that. But you look at today's decks, and a lot of the decks are based on like pendulum summoning, and I'm not going to explain that because even I don't fully understand it. And Chris, feel free to explain it in the chat, but I'm not going to read it because I don't care.
Yeah, it was like pendulum summoning, synchro summoning. Well, isn't sacrifice something they had right from the beginning? But yeah,
sacrifice was something they used to have right in the beginning, but not in the anime. In the anime, you could just play whatever you wanted whenever, which made games bullshit in the show.
yeah.
Just like I summoned Dark Magician, you didn't sacrifice anything. That's not part of the rules here. Don't ask me why.
That wasn't in the script.
Okay. Chris mentions the Seal of Orichalcus. Orichalcus arc, which yeah, I wasn't around around that time, and if he did lose in Abridged, I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm aware of the Seal of Orichalcos only from Abridged. So.
Oh, it says here. Yeah. Sorry, Chris words this in the most funny way possible. Seal of Orichalcus arc, Yami lost to this one guy and was about to have his soul stolen, and pre-puberty Yugi literally does a Mr. President moment and gets his soul sucked instead to save the pharaoh.
Yeah, that's pretty much the arc that gets covered in Abridged, which is pretty well done actually, because Yami's going around with his Yami voice.
I do like
and everyone's getting
the
to
part
know that
in
they
Abridged.
are actually separate people.
I do like the part in Abridged where he's challenging the main Orichalcus guy, and the big joke is he's got a fucking really horrible, stupid lisp. And he goes, yeah, and Yugi just goes, "Hey, seeing as you're so ancient, why don't you do you know my name? Oh yeah, that's easy. It's Atem." But because he says it in such a silly way, Yugi just goes, "Okay, if you don't want to tell me." Something like that, anyway.
But yeah, it was sold to Wizards of the Coast after this, and then they made Third Ed. It wasn't that balanced. It was way simpler, way easier to play, but it got a lot of books. There was like at its worst, there were like 2 books a month of bullshit that someone had written, and none of these people writing them were looking over each other's shoulder to see if someone else had written the same thing.
I'm just remembering. Do you remember that story I told you about that porn game?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure I told you of.
Okay, so I'll probably remember it when you start telling it. But like just from the title, I can't bring it to the forefront of my mind.
That's fair. That's fair.
Oh yeah. I know it now. I know it now.
Yeah. But for the benefit of those not aware, they had an update where they went, this character has an arse-eating scene, this character has an arse-eating scene, this character has an arse-eating scene. We're basically calling this the arse-eating update because we had 3 different people working on it at the same time, and none of them spoke to each other, and they all accidentally wrote arse-eating scenes. So, Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, third ed introduced DCs for skills and AC, which is basically a DC for at rolling to hit.
Oh, I'm
Before
sorry.
this,
I'm sorry. Chris just mentioned the most bullshit moment in Yu-Gi-Oh ever.
okay,
Where during I do remember this now that you've mentioned it. There was a lot of bullshit in Kingdom Duelist Kingdom duels. Not to mention the fact you could just summon anything whenever and all the other bollocks. But Chris mentions there's an episode where I'm gonna use Catapult Turtle to throw Gaia the Dragon Champion at the levitating ring of your Castle of Eternal Darkness, so it falls and crushes all your monsters under it. So I win.
bugger off.
Yeah, no, that was actually the resolution to a duel. And Chris is right. That was bollocks.
Yeah.
But also, Swords of Revealing Light, bullshit card. I'm pretty sure that card's banned.
I'm just nodding sagely because I'm just relying on you for all of my.
Okay.
You plural.
This
for
is
all of
what
my Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge.
This is what Swords of Revealing Light does, or at least in the anime it did this. I never actually owned a card myself. Of you play it and the opponent can't do anything for 3 turns.
Oh boy,
That's bollocks. No cost.
Yep.
I believe you can I believe if you have like a counter spell, you could disarm it before it triggers. But if it triggers, you're fucked for 3 turns, which is bollocks.
Yeah, there's a banned card in Magic called, I think it's Time Warp,
Yeah.
and it's take another turn, and it's banned for a reason because it's take another turn. They did a reprint which was a lot more balanced, where you play this, you put it on hold, and 3 turns later it plays. So your opponent can prepare for that turn. They can make sure they've got all the lands ready to counterspell anything that you do. But yeah, it's
I'm not going to repeat this story, Chris, because I don't want it to take up time on the podcast. But yeah, you're right. That was also fucking bullshit. He's talking about another duel where some bullshit that should not worked because the show was more concerned about things that were interesting and looked visually cool and could kind of make sense from a warp point of view, but made no sense in terms of a card game.
no.
Oh,
well, they also
okay.
have the heart of the cards.
I was also incorrect about Revealing Light. Chris says it only means you can't attack and you can't play monsters face up. I'm sorry, I'm in OBS, so I can't see the message. Face down. It's a stall card. Okay, so you can do things, you just can't do damage, as it were. That's more or less what it sounds like.
Sure.
But yeah, sorry, D&D.
Before we had armor class, we had something called THACO. Which
oh
was
my god!
0.
Okay, I didn't actually know. I don't know anything about this, but there was like multiple times in random fucking Let's Play videos, specifically the Best Friends Play, where someone would have a meltdown regularly over THACO, and I don't know why.
Armor class 0 was pretty good, like a 1+ armor save. And
Alright, Warhammer rules.
Yeah, and you could get below it. You could go anywhere from -10 to +10. And it was dumb where if you told your DM your THACO, which was what your opponent needed to hit armor class 0, then your DM could tell you what you needed to roll.
What?
But yeah, this got really condensed into, this is what you actually have because this is what the armor actually is.
Yeah, that sounds much easier to visualize.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to have the actual number than telling your DM a fake number and then having to work something out from the fake number.
Yeah.
It was implemented for tournaments, as far as I'm aware.
Tournaments for D&D?
Yeah. So...
before you go on to that, very quickly, bye, Chris. It was fun having you.
Bye, Chris.
But yeah, D&D tournaments. What?
Yeah, so you could either have PvP or you could have multiple tables running the same thing, seeing which wins first.
That's fucking ridiculous.
Yep.
That seems like so not the spirit of D&D.
Yeah. One of the things that Gygax used to do was he used to put in as many specific rules as possible so that the hair splitting was done by the rules and not by hand-wavy rulings because of the potential for tournaments. Like, he came from a war games background.
That makes sense, but from my perspective, D&D's always been just a co-op game of telling a story.
Yeah, it's it's playing make believe in your bedroom with a bunch of mates.
All right, that makes it sound weird, but yeah. Uh,
Okay, playing make believe in your kitchen or basement with a bunch of mates.
that makes it sound less weird, but still weird.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Man, no, I get that. I get that. I mean, let's get into this right now because we're talking about D&D and we just brought up rule lawyering a little bit. Um, what kind of a person are you? Because I'm a rules as intended type of guy.
I definitely side on rules as intended versus rules as written, because rules as written is so ridiculously rigid that if you go on Jeremy Crawford's Twitter, then
Who the fuck is Jeremy Crawford?
he's the current rules guy for Fifth Ed.
Oh, okay.
Like, people will ask him a question and he'll reply with a really autistic answer, which is, yeah, this is how the rules are. If you want to be a sword wielding caster, you have to drop your sword, touch your pouch, cast a spell, then bend over and pick your sword up.
Okay, it really bothers me that someone who writes rules for Dungeons and Dragons has never seen or read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Because Gandalf can fucking do whatever he wants.
I mean, he's Gandalf, like.
Yeah, but he's Gandalf. Exactly. He's the fucking very definition of a fucking wizard, and he wields a sword with no problem, while also holding a staff in the other hand.
Yeah, sword and staff. It's one of the more iconic depictions of a battle mage. It's great. Like,
fuck you, Crawford.
Like, he's right in that he's giving the correct answer to a question that was asked. He's wrong in that if you play it that way, then you're having an unfun game.
You have two hands.
Yeah. Like, there's an actual mechanical benefit to being a great sword wielder if you're a like sword mage, in that you can hold the great sword in one hand, you just can't attack. So you can just like take one hand off the great sword, do the thing, and then put it back on.
I mean, if you want to get really technical, like Gandalf's sword, at least in the films, is a hand and a half.
Yeah. In the films, all the fighty heroes, so
Aragorn, Boromir, yeah,
and Boromir, they all wield bastard swords.
Although Boromir's does look a bit more like actually, I think. I mean, I guess Theoden's not a main hero, but his is more like a broadsword cavalry sword, but he's on horseback, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Legolas's swords, they very rarely get used. They're just two little dual-wielding swords. They're still pretty nice and long, but, you know.
They get used so infrequently, I generally believe they were daggers for most of the film.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't play Lord of the Rings, the video game, because in that it's like, no, you can't be an archer in this video game, it breaks the game.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone had a martial weapon progression called BAB. That's base attack bonus. Whenever it got past 5, so when you got to like 6, 11, 16, you got an extra row of it, so an extra attack that started at 1 again. So level 5, you had +5. Level 6, you had +5 and +1.
It's a stupid fucking way of doing that, but okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that as someone who plays 5th, so like
they tone it down a bit in 5th. Yeah, in 5th, you either have extra attack or you don't. And the only one that gets more than that is a fighter, which kind of like skews it in favor of fighter to a degree and makes fighter more interesting.
Well, they have to. They got fuck all else going for them.
Yeah, basically, as a fighter, you're a stat stick. You're a stat stick, man. You throw yourself at the enemy and roll dice.
Like, the only time I had fun playing a fighter was as a battle master, because at least then you get spells that aren't spells.
Yeah.
I suppose you could go Eldritch Knight and get actual spells, but that's kind of boring.
I think the Eldritch Knight's one of the better ones, because of most of the spells you get are reactive. So, like, I'm just going to make myself tankier for a short amount of time, but that takes a bit of fuel out of my tank.
Sure, but I'm a purist.
Sure.
I like being one thing.
Sure.
Maybe I'm the odd one out there. I don't know.
Fair enough. And yeah, Neverwinter Nights was the first third ed D&D video game, and the last BioWare D&D game, and the one that my mate got that we played to death.
And it's a free-to-play MMO now.
Yeah, that's a different one. That's based on Fourth Ed.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the Neverwinter Nights video game people will be familiar with because it's still active is the MMO.
Yeah, yeah.
That's free
No,
to play and looks very bad.
It started good and it got worse as they increased the monetization. You can pay like 600 quid and be max level in half an hour.
Okay, you can play 600 quid and not play the game.
Yeah, you can save 600 quid and not play the game. There were a fucking ton of books, including the Book of Weeaboo Fighting Magic.
That's not the real name.
It's not the real name.
Okay, what is it actually called?
Oh, it's something like Eastern Promise, the Book of Nine Swords or something.
How racist is it?
It's called Weeaboo Fighting Magic for a reason.
Doesn't mean it's racist. Just saying.
No, it's not racist. It's just weeb. It's just weeby.
You want to be a samurai or a ninja? Here you go.
Oh
now,
yeah, there
do
were
not
two
touch
samurai.
me.
There were two versions of the samurai in Third Ed because they, like I said, they weren't looking over each other's shoulders. They did completely different things. They were completely different classes, and both were just called the samurai.
So here's how you fix that. One's called the samurai, the other one's called the shinobi. They're fixed.
Yeah, or the ronin.
Well, Ronin's just a samurai without a master.
Yeah, but because it has a different name, it's okay to call them different things.
Yeah, all right. Let me be nitpicky because I like samurai shit.
Yeah, totally. There was also, yeah, the books were sometimes 2 a month. They gave more races and classes. To wit, Arctic, Frost, and Glacier dwarves were all separate races.
So that's a case of where they did the same thing again. They all ripped the same rules for the same thing and went, oh, last minute, they actually checked each other's work and went, let's just name them slightly different. Problem solved.
Snow Dwarf Man. This is where they started to give out an open license to homebrew people. They could create splat books for regular D&D or make their entire own system based on the same kind of rules. So I've got one called Besem D20. It's Big Eyes, Small Mouth. It's a weeb book of weebs, but it's like kind of tongue-in-cheek and written like internally consistent. And because it's based on the same rules, it's cross-compatible with all of the basic Third Ed stuff. So you can have a Sentai Druid.
As in a Power Ranger?
Yeah. Sentai Power Ranger is one of the base classes in Besem.
That's fucking ridiculous.
It's also like Hot Rod. There's a standard shapeshifter, which is meant to be like a lycanthrope. They put a picture of a lycanthrope girl on there because that's what's going to draw you to it. There's giant robot pilot.
Yeah, Timber Top and Gurren Lagann, got it.
Yeah, yep. This is before Gurren Lagann as well, so...
Yeah, but guess what? It wasn't that original.
Yeah. Gundam Dude. And Hot Rod for Initial D.
By the way, I'm not shitting on Gurren Lagann. I also don't like Gundam. Just in case that was unclear.
Feats were a new thing, and they were inspired by someone looking at Magic the Gathering cards, realizing some of them were shit, and thinking they should implement this into the game system. So some feats were so shit that you could gimp yourself by taking them, and some feats were shit, but they were required to qualify for a good one later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it was there to... You've got 100 new feats, but maybe 13 of them are good in every book.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous. You needed to know all of them, and it was when the internet was now usable, so you could just look up a guide and say, "Okay, I want to make this. How do I make this?" And you would get some actual guidance on it.
Well, I do appreciate how in the 5th Ed rulebook, when you look at the classes, it literally says in the classes, quick start.
Yeah.
You want to make a fighter, invest in strength or dex, depending on what weapon you want, and then constitution. Done. Consider taking this background.
Yeah. Pathfinder started as a set of 3.5 modules that were written, and they were ready to publish when 4th Ed was new.
Okay.
But because 4th Ed came out, they thought, okay, we're going to need to capitalize on the nerds. They filed off the serial numbers, made their own system, with blackjack and hookers, and it rebalanced a lot of 3.5's garbage overload and condensed it. Some people refer to it as 3.75, and this is the game that Matt Mercer's game started on.
Okay.
Which, when they started streaming, they did a 5th ed conversion, but even that required a lot of homebrew, like the Gunslinger and the Blood Hunter, which just weren't part of 5th ed.
Sorry, we just got a message from Chris. Great thing about working at home is he can have a podcast in the background quite easily. Grumbles in Gurren Lagann. See, I knew you might be here. My brain just knew if I said Gurren Lagann, someone might turn up and crucify me. So I had to clarify that I'm not shitting on Gurren Lagann. I'm shitting on mecha. I can't help it. I don't like the genre.
Engen Topper Time Cleric.
I'm also pretty sure I butchered the pronunciation first time. So I was like, Gurren Lagann. I summoned Gurren Lagann in defense mode. Turn it into a Yu-Gi-Oh card, then I might enjoy it.
Oh, you have to use polymerization. You have the Lagan card out, and you have to polymerize it with the Gurren card. You get Gurren Lagann.
See, I didn't even
polymerize it with something bigger.
I hate everything about that sentence.
Yeah, the little Lagan is just like a head. It gets little arms and legs when it needs them, but generally it's just a head with a drill on its arse that it pops out when it needs it. It drills into things and takes over them.
Rick, I didn't ask. If I need a dump of lore from Gurren Lagann for some reason, I will gladly ask you or Chris in private. However, I do not.
Yeah, Pathfinder 1 existed out in the world, and it...
Oh no, Discord is completely shit in the bed.
Oh no.
Just like all I heard was garbledness, which means that's all that the audience is going to hear. And I also looked at your video, and you were going.
Okay, so apologies to the audience that just heard garbled nonsense for a little while.
Except for the audio version, which you'll hear everything perfectly.
But yeah, 4th ed came out. It was in response to Warcraft more than anything else. Characters had defined roles as defender, striker, leader, and controller. Their abilities had different cooldowns, like at-will abilities, encounter abilities, or dailies. And because this had everyone colouring in the lines so rigidly, a lot of characters just felt like stat sticks. It was damn near impossible to play without board and minis of some kind, which also, the miniatures were being made in greater numbers. So it was kind of a self-reinforcing thing.
Chris is trying to be cute, saying that he once had a custom deck of Yu-Gi-Oh with Gurren Lagann cards. So,
Aww.
It does actually take a bit more than that. I can't even remember how far I got into Gurren Lagann. I know it wasn't far.
Yeah, just get Exodia and cross out Exodia and put TTGL.
Okay, Chris also says the audio was fine for you on YouTube, so maybe YouTube is somehow fixing it. On OBS and on Discord, it was all blah, 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 blah. So I don't know what the fuck happened there. Maybe it's...
Fair enough. Yeah, there was a lot of emphasis on spacing, AoEs, and cooldowns. It had a unique setting called Nentia Vale. It was originally unnamed for the longest time.
Wasn't that the basis of a video game?
It might have been. There was Icewind Dale. That was another one.
Well, I meant specifically... I was... don't worry about it.
The fans called it Points of Light because for the longest time it was unnamed. And the idea was it was an unexplored world setting full of wonder and only a few true known destinations, basically, cities. So, every DM's homebrew world, but marketable.
Jesus Christ, I'm not even using a homebrew world right now. I'm using, what was it, the fucking Frozen North, or whatever the fuck it's called, from the Storm King.
Yeah.
And even I'm just like, everything the party's not going to might as well just be an uninhabited nebula.
With potential random encounters along the way.
Oh, so many. Like, I spent all of this, peeling behind back the curtain a little bit, D&D later on tonight for the first time in about 2 months. And I spent all of this morning just fine-tuning some things on Roll20. And
yeah.
One of those things was, this session might be boring, because there's going to be a lot of walking. Let's roll some dice and see what random encounters we can get. So,
yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Like, if you have some random encounters prepared, then you just have a D6 to find out which one you get.
I pre-rolled the random encounters.
Sure.
Because I am lazy and Roll20 is a bit of a bitch for doing things on the fly.
Oh yeah, totally.
Rick, you know this from the first time you DM'd.
Yep. But yeah, fourth ed came and went. Most people that liked third played Pathfinder instead, and they decided to bring back the entire crowd with fifth ed. As it was known in development, it was called D&D Next, which is why the subreddit's called that.
I didn't even. All my D&D subreddits have got nothing to do with a specific game. It's D&D memes, RPG horror stories, which some of them are funny, most of them are about horrible sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Which.
The one that I like is, well, the two that I like are 3D6, which is all about like building interesting characters and working with real different rule sets. And the other one is D&D Green Text.
Oh, I'm sub to that as well. Yes.
Yeah, 4chan style green text stories. And I posted 2 of our stories on there already.
2 of our stories? I know you did the Warhammer one. What was the other one?
One from you and one from sorry, it wasn't actually yours. It was another friend of mine. We did a one shot with all turtles.
Oh, so it was a Ninja Turtle game. Gotcha.
Pretty much. It's called Total Power on D&D Green Text. And yep. There's for a lot of us, 5th Ed is the only one most of us have actually played. It started pretty barren, but with every splat book, it matures into something a little bit more enjoyable for more people. The subclasses are what they used to evoke most of 3rd Ed's masses and masses and masses of classes. And yet, nothing quite captures the feel of the Warlord from 4th edition, which was a cool thing that a lot of people thought was cool. It was like a full martial support healer.
That sounds like something I would really like to play.
Yeah. You sit back, you shout orders, you give. It's a bit like how Battlemaster Fighter can do some maneuvers that benefit your allies rather than debuff your enemies.
Mm-hmm.
But like every turn instead of just like you've only got 3 or 4 of these.
Yeah. I feel you.
And that's like your main action. So you sit back, do the benefits. Compared to a wizard who has to do it with a spell and runs out. Yeah, it was a cool thing, and it's still not being captured in 5th.
Well, they seem to. When did 5th actually come out?
I think 2011.
Like that's an 11-year-old game, and they don't seem to be interested in developing a new system anytime soon. So maybe we're just going to keep getting fucking expansions and more building blocks on the base.
That will be my closing statement, spoiler.
Okay.
So we played this a hell of a lot more. They release books a lot less frequently than in the olden days. They're actually play tested. Sometimes it's crowdsourced. The Unearthed Arcana articles, which some people might have read, are like little bits of pre-release rules to see what the nerds think of them. And because nobody has stronger opinions than the intended target audience.
Yeah.
And some things don't make the cut. And some things get reworked into something else.
Well, they have to, because the first comment they get back is, cool, I'm going to combine this with this, and this, and now I'm unbeatable at level 2.
Yep. What does graduate to book status tends to be a lot more refined. One thing that I do remember being reworked from a subclass into a spell was there was a ranger subclass that made you into a were tree.
That's pretty. Yeah, so you become a fucking what they called a Bjorn,
super dryad,
a Bjorn from Lord of the Rings. They're just
yeah, maybe, yeah.
Oh wait, no, they turn into bears. Ignore me.
Yeah. I think the clue's in the name, Bjorn.
Yeah. Very quickly, Chris says 5th edition is the best edition yet by far. Anyway, so it makes sense for them to just expand on it instead. And I'm like,
totally.
I've never played any D&D edition apart from 5th, so I just assume it's the best because it's my frame of reference. I've never had any issues with it.
Yeah, totally. Like the only other one that played more recently is Pathfinder 2,
which
we
isn't
will be
D&D,
getting into a little bit. It basically is, but it's
But you know, when you say D&D and then you go, I played Pathfinder, it's like, cool, that's not D&D. It's not got the branding.
Yep, fair enough. But yeah, the weird tree thing, like you turned into a nearly stationary large creature that got more reach because trees have branches, and it really felt like when you turn into that form, you were bringing a boss fight to a normal encounter. It was a really cool way of playing.
Yes, and
So you're
the
like,
enemy wizard cast fireball, and that's the end of that dream.
well, you weren't actually a tree. You just took a tree-like form.
Yes, but you couldn't move.
I mean, you could turn it off.
Okay.
The way that I did it was I had a character with really long dreadlocks, and they planted the dreadlocks and started getting hoisted around them like a robot arm.
Yeah, don't like that. What a grotesque fucking mental image that is.
Well, I also like playing barefoot elves who are like really wild, so...
That's fine. That's different to my hair buries itself into the ground like roots and then wraps around me, turning me into a tree.
Yeah, this is someone who has already looked a little bit like a dryad. So they were already a bit like mossy and rooty.
I don't care. It's not a nice mental image. Let me just... Yeah, no.
I don't know. Dryads are cool, but oh well.
Dryads are cool. Turning into one, not so much.
Okay, I feel you. There's an organized play option for people that can't get a DM or are just in town for a month or two. It's called Adventurers League. It's typically free to play, but stores tend to like you to buy something. Smart stores have fridges full of gamer fuel because you only need to buy so many dice before you've got them already.
The one time I went to an actual store to do game things was we went to a store once to play a bit of MTG, and it's like they had a whole menu. Like, you didn't have to buy anything to play a game. You could just go and play a game, and we didn't spend... Well, actually, no, I think I bought a deck box. But,
yeah.
You didn't actually have to spend any money to play a game. So you went in, we played a game, and, like, I remember behind the thing, they had, like, a menu. It wasn't a real sophisticated menu. It was just, like, sweets, X amount.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The only thing I remember most was Toasties, £1.75. And I'm like, who the fuck's going to buy a Toastie from these guys? I didn't say anything. That's just all I could think of. I was like, this isn't the most...
Well, the difference there is if they sell food, then it's okay for them to say no if you want to get a pizza in the place.
Whereas
if they don't, if you ask them nicely, they normally say, as long as it's not smelly, you can have it.
Well,
and as long as you don't make a mess.
Here's what my issue with the Toastie and pizza to an extent as well is: I don't want to eat food that could mess up my my hands while playing a card game.
Yeah,
because I like my cards.
Yeah, that's generally why people use sleeves so they don't get pizza grease on them.
But I don't want the sleeves to even get messy. I haven't got OCD or anything like that, but like grease and crumbs and shit, get away from my cards.
I feel you.
Very quickly, just going to address Chris because he's been talking a little bit. Chris says, was the tree thing where you had temp hit points and when you lost them, you would go back to normal form, but with that hit points you had before? And I'm like, that's, yeah. He says druids are bullshit.
Yeah, there's something along those lines. There's one of the temp HP ones is when you become a mushroom-infested super druid.
Gross. Like one episode of The Owl House where Lou's is sick.
Yeah, she gets a mushroom out of her head and she goes really drunk.
That's great. I love the bit where she touches it and goes, wonder if this is permanent.
Yeah. It's not, because next episode it's gone. But
True. Well, like at the end of the episode, it's gone. But
yeah.
And then Chris says during that trip he did buy a playmat, so me and Chris both bought something. I'm pretty sure Matt probably bought something as well because he seems like the type. It's been a while. It was a long time. It was pre-COVID, so
yeah.
And
this was a pre-release as well, wasn't it?
Sorry,
wasn't this a pre-release?
No, we just went to play cards.
Okay.
Yeah, literally. And he says it's one of those where you're in town surrounded by a bunch of places that do food. You're likely going to go there when you do want food. And like, I get where you're coming from, but I'd still rather go to a place that does food instead of having a toastie made by these people at a game shop where I don't know where their toaster is. I don't know how often it gets cleaned. I'm really weird about food. I'm sorry.
Yeah. There's a sliding scale of them as well. Like, there's a place called Geek Retreat also in Leeds, and they are a cafe that has a few games. They have tables where you can play games. If you want to use their games, you can just pay them a rental fee of like £1 on your bill.
That's a good idea.
It's more of a cafe, yeah.
If it's predominantly a cafe, it's a bit different. But this was literally just a card shop that happened to have food for sale. They also had, I'm pretty sure they had a shit ton of Mountain Dew in their fridge.
Yeah. Mountain Dew, Monster, and then you got the less caffeinated ones like Coke, and then the non-caffeinated ones like Fanta.
Yeah.
Just in case you've got a dicky ticker.
Oh, and also,
Yeah.
I misunderstood Chris's statement. He was agreeing with what I was saying, where no, you'll go and do proper food at a proper place. My apologies, I read your sentence wrong, but it's me.
No worries, no worries. DMs are typically paid in store credit, which keeps them coming back, and DMs being there is what keeps the players coming back. So it's like a never-ending Ouroboros of nerds. It's great.
Absolutely. Chris just made me chuckle as opposed to Shady Toasty in a nerdy card shop.
Indie nerd toasty.
Oh no.
Yeah, the rules for this used to be player's handbook +1, so you could have a tabaxi or you could have a hexblade, but you couldn't have both. And a lot of new DMs also adopted this as a way to keep the bullshit combos to a minimum, while still letting people have at least some fun. But even Adventurers League's abandoned this as it sells more books.
I do remember the absolute first time I DM'd, I had a harsh stance of player's handbook only. I don't want to deal with bullshit, please. I'm new.
Yep. And like, I've been playing for so long that I forget that certain things aren't in the handbook. Like, absorb elements isn't in the handbook.
I don't think even Swashbuckler's in the basic handbook.
No, it's not. Like, they're assassin, thief, or arcane fixer. Oh.
Yeah, no, Discord shit the bed completely.
My camera seems to have failed. Let's stop the camera.
Okay, your camera's failed, but your audio still works. However, it's the worst freeze frame possible. The freeze frame is awful. I'm sorry, Rick. That's unfortunate for you.
Yeah, I can see what the freeze frame is as well. Like,
I could try and pretend to freeze for a minute. It's just like, hang
on. Right, let's see. Let's try and get the camera working again. Apologies for everybody, people. Everybody, people? Yeah. Droid cam.
Rick just died for me and is now permanently
frozen. I'm a face.
So that's how long that's how long of a delay we've got on the stream. Is Chris is only now just hearing this, getting this.
Does it work now?
It's no.
Okay, it's stuck like that now. Okay, fine.
Oh, it's oddly charming.
Yep. Are you're aware of these as well, aren't you? The you know when they show an old Disney cartoon or an old Looney Tunes cartoon, there's like a disclaimer saying,
yes,
yeah, we know this was racist back then. They probably knew it was not right back then. We definitely know that it's not right now.
I got
but
it.
We're showing what it used to be.
I did get the I got that exact warning the other day when I was watching the Muppets, and I was just like, huh, that's weird. I wonder what's going to be racist. And it got nearly all the way to the end. I'm like, there was nothing racist about that. And then they started singing a song that was very offensive towards Indians, Chinese, Hindus, anything that wasn't English.
Yeah. They've got one for that for the more modern D&D stuff, saying legacy content was written with this kind of profiling back when it was prevalent. We're going to keep on printing it because anything else would ignore that prejudice ever existed. So things like orcs having negative intelligence is now no longer a thing, although they still let you use the books in which it was true.
Yeah, but yeah. Just very briefly, appreciate it, Chris. I might talk to you about that after later on, but right now, moving on. Sorry, not to ignore you.
But yeah, they've as a response to like racially profiling people, like different races. As
oh my! I don't. It's impossible to hear you at the moment, Rick.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
You're roboting like a motherfucker.
Let's move this around, see if anything works.
I mean, if you're roboting, I doubt it's anything to do with equipment, you know?
Well, sometimes it is, but if I close this, then that's one fewer thing that my Wi-Fi is dealing with. But yeah, they stopped making things based on the stats that the race gives you, because it pushes people to stereotyping specific races.
Yeah, but orcs are dumb.
Yeah, but the idea is maybe I should have just accepted that so readily, but you know what I mean, right?
But that's what orcs are meant to be, strong and dumb, like Jock. Apparently, Chris can hear you fine on YouTube, and I don't understand how that works because it's a direct translation from Discord to the OBS to YouTube. I don't know, but me hearing you directly, you're still roboting weirdly.
Yeah, that is weird. That is weird. Well, here's the thing: intelligence is meant to be education rather than actual mental capacity.
In which case, they have negative wisdom. Orcs are
Yeah,
meant to be
well,
dumb. All right, they're not meant to be dumb. Orcs are meant to not know much apart from how to do warfare.
yeah. And at
So,
best, you'll have a shaman who is very knowledgeable about how to bend the latent energies of the area to their will.
but it's also like it's they say it in even in fifth ed of why half orcs are so dangerous. It's because they're smart.
Oh yeah, totally, totally. Like an orc tribe normally really likes it when a half orc is still part of the tribe because it means that they have a tactician.
Oh, everyone
They won't
enjoys it
let
except for the war boss.
Yeah, the war boss doesn't want the half orc to be the war boss.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
the war boss will make sure that they are still bigger and tougher and stronger and more well equipped with other cunning bastards than the half orc will ever be.
Yeah.
Um,
Chris says he's seen someone play a really well done intelligent orc before. One of my favorite twists is someone played a orc mage
yeah,
who had a helmet that made him intelligent, which meant he could cast spells. However, he couldn't cast spells. He was just throwing his staff at people and calling it a spell. No.
turning stick. I cast fist.
Chris also raises a valid point. Like in most of my campaigns, orcs have never been completely dumb and have been civilized, if a bit leaning more towards a warlike culture. It's just traditional orcs are meant to be crush. I think of Warhammer orcs as generic orcs, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
Which is
Like
literally
an
just like if you're
internal
not warring, then you're not doing life right.
Yeah, I've played a lot of systems recently or settings recently where orcs are just another civilized race. So they have their own culture and they integrate in different ways. They tend not to do cities too well. That's because they prefer being out in the wilds, like wood elves.
Like you could quite easily change orcs to be more like a Mongolian society where they're nomads. That feels like it would work very well.
Yeah, very very well.
Like
Like
that's a
they're
civilized
basically,
society. The only difference is they don't settle down into cities because life on the plains is easier to do, you know,
yeah,
nomadically.
yeah, they're the orcs. They're the elves of the steppes.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, um, they have been printing books that are mainly either player stuff, DM stuff, or settings. So the player stuff is stuff that anyone can buy. The DM stuff is like your Monster Manual 2 and 3, which aren't called that. They basically are. And the setting stuff and campaign books are very definitely for DM. But some of the setting books are useful for players for getting you into what that setting does, what that setting is. Like the Eberron book, the first half is for anyone. The second half is for DMs only.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very briefly, Chris is going on about traditional orcs still having their culture, and that's how culture works by definition. I don't think I ever outright said they didn't have culture. I just said they were dumb. Like, there's a difference. Like, orcs traditionally are brutish creatures with their mind is just occupied with war, fighting, blah blah blah. I never said that wasn't cultural. It's a very
Yeah, it's
simplistic, bare bones culture because people are lazy at writing, but that's so you can put your own spin on it. That's part of the fun of D&D, usually.
yeah, generally, yeah. Um, but yeah, there's some other setting. The majority of alternate settings books are Magic the Gathering settings now, with Eberron being pretty much the only exception. And the MTG settings are now written by the D&D people rather than the Magic crew that just happen to play D&D and have fun with it.
Yeah, they're owned by
Because
the
the
same
ones that
company
they
now,
wrote
aren't
were
they?
stupid. Well, yeah, they've been owned by the same company since they're dead.
Okay.
When they were trying to aim at Magic things back when it was the TSR days, Magic was already Wizards of the Coast.
Very sorry, very quickly. Chris says that you said something more to that effect, he thinks. And I'm just like, uh, sorry, Chris. Sorry, Rick, even. But sometimes you use words when you didn't mean to. It's fine.
Okay.
Apparently, you said something about orc culture. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm juggling like two things at once, so some things don't fully sink in.
Okay. When I said culture, I meant like a unified culture across the entire race, as it were, rather than individual settlements. Because like the human culture tends to be city based rather than, individual guy out in the woods. You
Yeah,
know
I,
what I
I,
mean?
I don't think it's important to dwell on it. It's fine. Chris says equally he's the podcast is happening quickly while he's working, so he could have misheard. Whatever. There's someone
Oh, sure.
talking in the chat. I feel the need to address. Man, it's going to be awful if we ever get big and have 100 people talking at once.
Well, if we do, then we're going to have to rely on super chats only.
If we do, I'm just going to ignore the chat.
Yeah. Ignore chat apart from super chats. Go.
We're never going to have
And then if you
super
get
chats.
And then if you get too many super chats, then you just have to do a super chat thank you reading at the end at some point.
No.
But yeah, Pathfinder 2 does to 5th ed what Pathfinder 1 did to 3.5. It takes bits of 4th along the way. Has the same problem that 5th ed had at launch, which is player's handbook only. And similar to 5th ed, it's now matured into a very diverse system. I play it with a formerly 5th ed group. And our last outing before the Switch was a 1 to 20 D&D campaign in Eberron, where we dinged 20 after being the final boss and rolling the proverbial credits.
Okay.
But yeah, I like Pathfinder 2. It's fun.
Yeah, fair enough, man.
It does some things different.
I'm very boring when it comes to tabletops, and usually whenever I've branched out into other systems, I've gone, it's easier to do fifth.
It generally is. Like, the thing that 5th does easier than Pathfinder, in my opinion, is that you've got very definitely a move. You very definitely got your action, and sometimes if you've got one, you got your bonus action. That was something that was apparently a thing in 4th. You had movement, major action, minor action.
Okay.
And that's also how they do it in Dragon Age tabletop. You got movement, or you got move. You got actually no Dragon Age tabletop. You got major action and minor action, and your most common minor action is move.
That's dumb.
But the Dragon Age tabletop was pretty bare bones, and it was only play tested up to 5th level.
And how high can you go in that
yeah.
game? I'm assuming 20.
I think you can go at least to 15.
Well, because in Dragon
about
Age, the
11 or
game,
so.
you get to 20.
Yeah.
That's
we got
why
to
I
about
assumed.
11. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got to about 11 and it was already bullshit broken and OP. Like, some people were really ridiculously powerful, some people really weren't. And you could really see the divide between the strong characters who were accidentally min-maxed and the weak ones who just rolled bad.
Sure.
Like, the DM had to cater to the strong ones, and the weak ones just got completely left behind. Guess which I was?
I don't know, man, because the stories I got from you were never about mechanics. They were always about plot.
Yeah, fair enough. In that situation, I was playing a weak character because I rolled bad at character creation. There were no re-rolls, and everyone had to like it or lump it.
Well, that sounds like your DM fucked up.
Yeah, a little bit. We had a session 0 way later on in the game where we had a round table, and I didn't bring it up, but everyone else did. That my stats were shit, and I was unable to do anything.
That does suck. By the way, Chris says we may be aware of this, but your face is frozen, Rick. And yeah, we said
Yeah,
back when it froze.
yeah, yeah. My face is frozen. I can't get the camera to start again.
We spent like
So
2 minutes trying to fix it on air, and we were just like, no,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
just
we
gonna
did.
keep going with Rick's silly face.
Yeah, so I have become a cardboard cutout. At least it's reasonably high res.
Sure, but it's just like, hang on, hang on.
At least I'm not making an F sound.
Yeah, that would.
That would make me look really angry.
But yeah, you couldn't do anything in a D&D game, and as someone who's played a couple of games, sometimes it feels like that, man.
Yeah, yeah. Like, if you are in a place that's not where the action is, then, you've either got to spend all of your time getting to the action, by which point it's probably over, or, you might as well go make a sandwich and just skip the session. And you basically don't know until it starts.
Yeah, fair enough. And Chris, to your point, I'm looking at chat versus OBS and it cuts off the very last thing, so I actually didn't see you use the word still. Sorry. But yeah, no,
But yeah.
like I've had that problem as a DM as well. Like, remember, I know it was over a month ago now, but I remember last session, Nibs. Oh, sorry, it was even the session before last where Nibs went off in the wrong direction, and it meant for most of combat she was just wandering down a hall, having her own little adventure in caves.
Yeah, yeah. Like, at least with it being Nib, you can just imagine Nibs as a Lala doing like Lala dances, Lala strolls.
I was entirely imagining that. Because she's a
Yeah,
gnome as
totally.
well, which is basically just a D&D Lala.
Yeah, 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 yeah. They're even more Lala than halflings are because they've even got the pointy ears and everything.
No, we're aware the issue's not been fixed. We can't fix it. Sorry, Chris. What am I
Yeah,
apologising to you for?
apologies.
You're not having a go at us. It's fine. But yeah, it's an interesting. It's not an interesting. It's a weird problem to have, and there's been like 3 occasions now where something's gone not wrong in a D&D session, but something's gone suboptimally to my plans, and I've just not dealt with it. And instead, I've gone, well, this has happened now instead of the thing I was going to have happen. And like in retrospect, it's like, well, I could have done this or I could have done that. It's one of the things. Like D&D is a constant learning experience. Even if you're a D&D,
totally.
even if you're a DM or a player.
Yeah, that's why you started with a starting block as well, wasn't it? For like planned encounters, like your guy in the starting block, and then the encounter reveals itself.
Say that again, sorry.
When you've got a new map and you've got most of its fog of war, and you've got like a little starting block square. We need to put our guys in the starting block.
Yeah,
because that's a lot more convenient than having everyone scattered around a map that may or may not be relevant.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm like, well, usually most of my encounters are like a cave. You start at the cave mouth. I don't want you to go past this point because in theory that's when enemies rush you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, okay, and then things will go messy if someone instantly puts themselves in the middle and no one else has, and this and that. And Chris, I'm not ignoring you. It's just it's not a really organic place to mention your chats, but yeah, I am seeing them. But yeah, well, we're coming to a lull. Chris is just like he can imagine Nibs doing what we mentioned, and he says, to be honest, it's things going wrong that make shit all the more fun in my experience, and that's as a DM or as a player, I've always found that, which is it's fair. Like I said, I'm usually pretty okay with things not going to my mental plan, but like the big Nibs wandering off was a cute moment, and it didn't ultimately matter too much. Like the combat encounter wasn't designed to kill the party, so it didn't matter that one party member wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
The big one I remember is in the Warhammer, where he's in the chat, which is useful. Where Chris got the crittest of crits against a fucking demon. An elder demon, for lack of a better word, in case people aren't familiar with Warhammer, and just killed it in one shot. And I was like, oh, okay, boss is done, I guess, and then moved on to the next thing.
It was worse than that. He was like, haha, you thought I had only had one phase, and he went into his second phase.
No, we didn't do second phase.
But archers have 2 attacks, and Chris critted again.
I don't remember that happening. I don't remember. I don't remember triggering a second phase. I remember because I remember I had several phases actually planned, and I went, well, fuck it, thing's dead, and moved on. I could have sworn.
I'm pretty sure he critted twice
But well,
in that one turn.
I remember telling you after the fact that oh yeah, that boss had X amount of forms, and it was going to be this and that and blah blah. But I don't know. It's been a fucking long time. And yeah, the Band of the Blackbird all joined in and did Ghost Arrow Volley, which is why I could have sworn it was only one attack. But
Yeah, I think that was the narrative to back up the amazing god rolls.
yeah, but I could have sworn it was only one crit. But because don't forget the way crits work in Warhammer, it wasn't you get a crit, you do X damage. It was you get a crit, roll on the crit table, and then you rolled on the crit table, the thing's dead.
Yeah.
So it could be looked at as two crits. I don't know. Chris is saying you're right with it being two crits, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's how I remember it anyway, and I think it's how I portrayed it in the green text.
Chris says there was only one phase, but Rick's right about the two crits, and then Dev had to roll a crit chart to see what happened, and the second crit was the thing that... Okay, yeah, so he had two attacks, and both attacks critted, I guess. It's been a while, like I said, I can't remember. I remember that I had multiple phases, and you guys didn't get to see the additional phases, and I was like, well, that's the end of that plot line.
The last thing I did have to mention was to celebrate the 50th anniversary in 2024, 5th Ed is getting new core rulebooks that are going to be completely backward compatible, but they may be potentially marketed as 5.5 or even 6th edition.
That is, we want more money.
Yeah. On the plus side, it will mean that they are consolidated into a definitive book or set of books, rather than being 16 books that there are right now.
Yeah, I guess. It's one of those things where, I don't even buy physical books anyway. All of my stuff is digital now because it's easier and space is at a premium.
Yeah.
And, Chris is correcting not himself, myself, because again, I misread comments. No, one attack, it was a crit, rolled on a crit chart, rolled the best possible thing on that, so it was one attack, but technically two crits because he rolled the best result on both.
Sure.
So,
okie doke.
But again, it was a while ago. I don't blame anyone's memory for being fuzzy. Even I was like, you know what, maybe it was two phases, but I could have sworn I only showed one. But hey, there's a third perspective, so we don't need to dwell on it for any longer. Yeah, man, I don't know what I feel like. If the book is like a massive tome hardback and looks really pretty, I might be interested. But otherwise, I kind of like the systems we got.
Yeah, like a leather-bound tome that looks like it's got a human face on it or something, dribbly like that.
Yeah, not quite that grotesque, but if it's meant to be like a 50th anniversary, you want it to look pretty and be like a collector's item, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, totally. I can see it being interesting. I can see it being good. I have one hardback book from 5th Ed, and it's the worst book to have because it's a DM material. It's DM materials for a bunch of short campaigns, not quite one shots, but yeah. And you can't use any of the maps because they're little tiny things on a page in a physical book.
Yeah. Even the maps nowadays in the PDFs aren't very good at you. It's not ideal translating them to Roll20, which I don't know about other people, but it's the way I run games.
Yeah.
And it just looks awful.
Roll20 has been a massive equalizer for people not able to get to games. Being able to attend a game remotely is fantastic. It's not perfect, but it's way better than nothing.
Well, I'd be interested to see the numbers because I bet you the amount of Roll20 accounts fucking spiked at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's not even from new people getting interested, just people who used to play regular roundtable games and then went, nah, fuck it. We want to keep playing. Let's do Roll20. It's not the same, but it'll do. And
yeah, I'm even in a game that's a hybrid game. Everyone else apart from me sits around the table, has pizza, whatever, and I'm a face on a screen. Because everyone else is in New York State and I'm not.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shame.
And now and again we do a Roll20 game when either too many people self-isolating, or the weather is too bad. The most recent one was the weather. And the map on Roll20 is generally a lot better to use than me looking at a physical map on a webcam and saying, can I move 2 away from the camera and 2 towards Nick?
Yeah. Very quickly, Chris has given us a bunch of messages as he's slowly caught up with the stream, or rather, the stream's caught up with him. I don't know how to word that. You know what I mean. Chris has got a bunch of D&D books now, hardback ones. They're nice. He's got 7. 2 of them are Critical Role play guides, but still, yeah, it's still a D&D fucking book. I'd count it.
Yeah, totally.
Honestly, part of him buying the handbooks is just because the art is incredible, and I get that. I've bought video games, countless art books, but
yeah, totally.
I'm pretty sure you could get just general D&D art books nowadays. I could be wrong on that. I'm not going to don't quote me on it, basically. Platforms like Roll20 also are just beneficial for making D&D possible in general. In the age of the internet, it isn't unrealistic to say a lot of people's core friends or geek friends, etc., are heavily just online exclusive. Yeah, that's been true for some people for a long time.
Yeah, totally. Like, case in point, us, predominantly. Like, we have met in real life, however, predominantly we are online 95% of the time, probably more.
No, I get you, man. I think I've met you in the flesh like 4 times.
Yeah. But yeah, that's I think the final 3 isn't quite as relevant to this podcast as normal.
It'll be difficult to do MVP because it's just like, well, do you give it to Gygax or do you give it to Wizards of the Coast in general? Stats out. Weakest link. We already said what editions we don't like, or you don't like, I should say. And even favorite moment, it's just like, well, we haven't got much crossover with campaigns. It's just going to be like, we both had fun moments in an XYZ D&D campaign, you know?
Yeah. I probably will say that my favorite moment in a campaign was one that you weren't in. It was when my guy was facing down a Titan. This Titan was doing all these Thanos things, like destroying the moon and throwing it at us, and like bashing down on us and making us kneel by force. And my guy was just no, and passed like 2 consecutive DC Infinity sit down checks.
Well, they weren't DC Infinity, otherwise you'd fail.
Yeah, it was just like, it was a real like Thanos versus Captain America moment of like just blocking the impossible to block and still refusing to give up. Like that was a real cinematic moment, just passing 2 of those checks and making the boss really annoyed and really focused on me, and everyone else was able to kill him because of it.
Fair do.
And we became a pantheon.
I'm going to assume you said we became a pantheon.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. You cut out at a really bad time.
Yeah. We didn't become a pancake. He tried to make us into a pancake and said he made us a pantheon.
Okay. Didn't say anything about pancakes. That was you.
No. It's the only other thing I could think of that begins with pan.
Yeah, but pan wasn't the bit I heard. It was Theon, so...
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all we've got to talk about history and ancillary stuff, unless you can think of anything else.
I was just going to briefly touch upon the fact that outside of D&D, the 2 tabletop elements that we've actually played together is a superhero-esque tabletop game, which was awful because it didn't have stats, really. It was really weird.
Yeah, like, people online think that the book is really good for being able to customize anything, but none of us could get our little lizard brains around it. Like,
well, it didn't have stats. It didn't have anything for foes. It didn't say how the stats actually worked. It's just like, I've got 15 strength. What does that mean?
Yeah, and even if there was an ability, it'd be like, yeah, refer to this other place in the book. But it wouldn't say this other place. It'd say, refer to this other ability, and you have to find it yourself.
It didn't make any goddamn sense. Chris is bemoaning the fact that he missed Pancake Day.
Yeah. We did Pancake Day. We made some savory pancakes. We made some sweet pancakes.
Yeah, I don't do Pancake Day. I can't be asked.
Yeah. I didn't find out until recently that Shrove Tuesday is part of a verb and not a noun, so there's no such thing as a Shrove.
Okay. But yeah,
But yeah,
superhero D&D. It wasn't very good. I didn't think it was very good as a DM. I assume you as players also didn't really. Yeah, it wasn't very. I don't remember ever rolling for anything.
yeah, it was. I think it was basically a roll off and see who wins this.
But it didn't make any sense. And then the other thing we had experience with, and we only played it pretty much because I can't remember if you guys went on it as well, but I remember I bought the Humble Bundle for the Warhammer Fantasy game books.
Yeah, I let people know because I was the one that had a little bit of experience with that system. You bought it, and then you ran it, and
Very quickly realised, oh, this fucking system is brutal.
oh, it's definitely brutal. Like, part of the system is play someone with a lot of fate points because those are the things that let you do rerolls.
And then you got me behind the screen going, oh, that enemy rolled this. I'm going to pretend it didn't.
Yeah, like there are stats for the Bloodthirster, which has like over 100 in a lot of things.
Yeah. Chris says he enjoyed our role playing, but that's us. That was our content. And it's like, yeah, the role playing was fun, but at that point, it was baffling. We didn't need the book. We didn't need the content. All of that shit was just shit. We could have just fucking role played, and I don't mind just role playing, but it does feel silly at times.
Yeah, it does feel a bit silly. It was like Playground with Roll20.
It pretty much, man. But again, the Roll20 was unnecessary.
Well, it was nice to have a visual representation of a thing that you were fighting that was new rather than just a description, you know?
Yeah, I guess. I do remember one of the superheroes was just the generic image for a hobgoblin captain. So I was like, this guy looks cool. I'm using his face.
Yeah, this is the Hobo Gobbo. And yeah, I liked those characters. I liked the way that the story was starting to form, and like we were getting a bit of world building. Things were happening. Like my mentor was basically a white-haired All Might.
Yeah. Chris makes a valid point. We might as well have just gone LARPing as superheroes. I think. But yeah.
Yeah.
Back to Warhammer very briefly. Yeah, it was a harsh system. Very harsh.
Yeah, it's a system built around failure. Like you are more than likely than not to fail at most things until you are ridiculously overleveled.
Yeah. And even then, like case in point, you guys randomly took down a greater demon with one attack.
Yeah.
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 It was, like that shit shouldn't happen. But yeah, very briefly before we actually sign off, I do want to talk about two systems I would love to play a game in one day. One is the Warhammer 40k equivalent of the Warhammer system, which looks very fun. However, it looks fun because of the setting to me. If you have no information about Warhammer 40k, it's probably going to be not very good because it's going to be just as punishing as Warhammer Fantasy for one.
Yeah.
And I think most... Gone.
There's an old one of that that's D100, and it's completely compatible with the Made RPG.
Yes, but that's the same for Warhammer Fantasy. That was D100.
Yeah.
And this was a point you brought up when we first played.
Yeah. So you can just have your Slaaneshi cultist also be a butler.
Fucking...
or whatever.
Yeah, that works. I'm getting mad at Chris in the comments. Dev, we should play FF on the playground again. You can be from 9 and I'll be from 14. I'll be 5 games higher than you. Oh, fuck you. But yeah, I'd like to give it a go, except it seems like the main cast is usually Imperial Guardsmen, and they don't last long.
No.
The other one I would love to... Go on, sorry.
There was Inquisitor as well. That was also D100, but it was based around you having like a small squad of like an Inquisitor and their minions.
Yeah, including
so
Imperial Guard.
Yeah. There was one Space Marine. There was like literally one Space Marine for the entire thing, and like everyone who wanted to play Space Marine bought that model, and then bought a different head for Forge World, so they weren't that same bald guy. They had a normal Space Marine head.
Man, normal Space Marines look so boring.
Yeah, yeah, they do. There was a
Uh,
guy with like Terminator armor, but he was a normal human. So he was an Inquisitor, but he was a normal unmodified human. But people still used it because his armor looked cool.
something tube armor, cool. That's what I
Okay,
heard.
there
Sorry.
was yeah, yeah. There was an Inquisitor. He had like Terminator armor. He looked cool.
Okay, fair enough. Chris is saying how, to be fair, the demon kill was at least awesomely systematic. It was. Imperial
Yeah.
Guardsmen equal red shirts. No, they're even more easier to kill.
Yeah.
In any book involving any conflict with Space Marines or any Imperial faction, Imperial Guardsmen die in droves to show how badass Space Marines are by not dying.
Yeah, they're basically human goblins.
Yeah, but they're cheaper and more expendable.
Yeah. They're just there to show how shit the world is by how many of these ostensibly normal humans who are ostensibly well trained just die. These conscripts, like in the millions.
Yeah, it's bad. But yeah, the final thing I want to say is the other system I would really love to either run a game in or play a game in is I really want to have a crack at that Star Wars fucking tabletop game.
Yeah, I've got a couple of books for that.
Fair. Oh, Chris meant cinematic, not systematic, which makes way more sense on that demon thing.
Yeah. I feel you. I was parsing it in my head, but I didn't want to interrupt. Like, I've done that too much already.
The word wasn't too out of place, so I'm like, okay, that's a bit weird, but I'll roll with it. Chris knows English better than I do. It has to make sense to someone. But no, it was just autocorrect or something.
Yeah, I've got some Star Wars tabletop books. They're based on 3rd ed. So it's a bit of a modification to 3rd ed. Like a dark side point is something that gives you physical corruption.
Yeah, but I thought I could have sworn there was just a straight up Star Wars tabletop game that was its own thing.
Yeah, there's a newer one, but I've got the old one.
Okay, but I'm talking about the new shit that is just Star Wars brand, not modified D&D.
No, this was Star Wars brand before it was Disney, and they took the when I said like the OGL 3rd ed license where they just poured it out to anyone, let anyone could use it. They took that, made a D20 system out of it, and it was Star Wars D20.
Okay.
Like properly branded.
Okay. Everything. But if yeah, fair enough, Matt. Like. Chris is saying he'd join that, and I'm like, yeah, if I can ever get enough players to be interested, I might run a game, but it'd probably be a one-shot.
Yep.
Just
it was around the time of a Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones that it was released, so that's putting it into like a window perspective.
I mean, I probably just said it during the Clone Wars because then there's an excuse for everybody to be Jedi.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like, it's a very good period to be in, like either the Clone Wars or Old Republic area.
Yeah, I know more about Clone Wars.
I think we all do at this point. Yeah, Knights of the Old Republic was based on D&D 3rd as well. It was slightly different to the Star Wars tabletop, even though they came out around the same time. But yeah, they both have like D20 stats, D20 skills, all that.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I don't know. It depends. I'll look into it a bit because either I want to do like a game where everyone's Jedi during Clone Wars and having fun like that, or set it during between New Hope and Empire, and have like people be members of the Rebellion, but that would mean no Jedi, which is kind of less fun.
But you could still have Force sensitives that just wouldn't have training.
Yeah, true. I don't know. I'll think about it. It's something I really want to do because it seems fun. Old Republic is also possible, yeah, but like I said, I'm not as knowledgeable, and as a DM, I'd like to have knowledge of the thing I'm doing.
Yeah, like you could even set things like pre Phantom Menace, although in that kind of time period. So like young Qui-Gon type of era.
Sure. Like I said,
like
I'll think about it.
Obi-Wan's actually a kid.
Yeah, when Obi-Wan's on Mandalore and fucking Princess.
No, that was after. No, it was when she's.
I mean,
when he's actually a
was
kid.
he was still a Padawan. It counts. Might as well. If you're a Padawan, you're basically a kid to the Jedi.
Yeah, you are. Until you lose your braid.
Yeah.
It only works for humans.
Chris is looking forward to both KOTOR and doing his cosplay, which can't blame him.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, that's all I wanted to dwell on. Should we say goodbye?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty much a goodbye from both of us. If you liked our content and you weren't in the chat live, hello, Chris. You can leave us a comment down below on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on audio, you can send us an email. Where would we send said email?
Nonsensereview at... Yeah, nonsense...
UK.
Nonsense Review UK. I was like, what did I do wrong there? Yes, send us an email at nonsensereviewuk@gmail.com. Once again, that is nonsensereviewuk@gmail.com.
So it's going to be a goodbye from me.
And it's going to be a jolly farewell from me. See you next time, guys. I'm the only one who can wave. Yeah.
I'm waving in spirit. Bye.